Hi everybody, welcome back to our Coping Through Cancer Toolbox mini-series. I'm Samantha Stevenson, one of the behavioral therapists here at City of Hope, Chicago. I'm also a breast cancer survivor, so learning how to cope through cancer has been very near and dear to my heart. Thanks for joining me on this journey. As you can see, we're outside. I am so glad to be outside. It's one of my favorite places to go if ever I'm feeling stressed. I turn to nature a lot. Today's little mini series is going to be about anger, constructive ways to work through anger. Sometimes in our society, anger can have kind of a stigma around it. Like maybe when someone's angry, it seems unsafe or scary. There are reasons why we feel anger. It's one of our emotions that's built into our system, and learning how to listen to what our anger is telling us and cope through it is really, really helpful. Anger can sometimes be stigmatized as unsafe, inappropriate, unacceptable. Again, we have those feelings for a reason, so there are ways that we can manage through them. I'm outside today because that's part of my coping skills tools that I'll show we have around us at all times. So I've just picked up some sticks and some pine cones. I'll show you how I'm gonna use those later on. I looked up the definition of anger, and the definition of anger is defined as an intense emotional state involving a strong, uncomfortable, and non-cooperative response to a perceived provocation, hurt, or threat. I had to take a minute to let that sink in. So re-go through that as many times as you need to comprehend kind of what anger is broken down into. A person experiencing anger will often experience physical effects, okay? So if you've ever been super angry, think back to that moment. You may have an increased heart rate, like your heart is pounding. You may start sweating and feeling really hot, elevated blood pressure, and increased levels of adrenaline. And anger can also trigger the fight or flight response, and it can be the predominant feeling behaviorally, cognitively, and physiologically when a person makes the conscious choice to take action to immediately stop the threatening behavior of another outside force, which could be inappropriate and or harmful for the given situation. Being able to identify those first initial signs of anger when you're feeling it is really a key component so that you can de-escalate yourself. Even saying phrases like, I'm feeling a little bit flustered right now, I think I need to take a step away. You're allowed to do that. You should be able to step in and ask for what you need in those moments. So I know in my own partnership, sometimes I want to talk through things and my partner needs a minute to step away and really think through stuff before coming back together. It's okay to ask for that and share with your partner or family members why you might need to step away. I just need to think about this for a minute. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Sometimes they might have a hard time accepting that or understanding it, and that's okay. I know you don't understand what I'm going through, and that's okay, but I just need to take a minute away for myself. That's perfectly fine. There are also many different ways to constructively deal with anger that we're going to go over here in just a little bit. So I want to talk about first the potential causes of anger. Especially as a cancer patient and family that's dealing with a cancer situation, there can be stress, you can feel fatigued, overwhelmed. There may be even some medical conditions that are amplifying those intense emotions. Steroids, love-hate relationship with steroids. They're great, they give me energy during treatment. However, they can intensify those emotions to make me highly irritable, reactive. If you're noticing anything like signs of that in yourself or a family member notices, just be open to the conversation hey, things get to you a little bit differently than they used to. That might be something we should bring up at the next appointment. There is no shame in it, and there can be many adjustments made to make your days feel more comfortable. Other potential causes of anger, unmet expectations. Who has high expectations of themselves and or those around us. I think it's fair to say we have expectations of our treating physicians, our care team, ourselves, our family members. We may be asking things of people that they just don't have the ability to provide. So thinking about that, we can be really hard on ourselves too. Like, I anticipated powering through cancer. I'm not an emotional person. Like, I'll be fine. I'll just do the stuff and it'll be great. And now I'm crying every day and I don't know who I am. Of course, that can be really frustrating. Disappointments to go along with that. Yeah, I'm really disappointed that this treatment didn't work. Working through some of that with a counselor or therapist can be really beneficial. You're allowed to feel disappointed. Feeling threatened. You know, sometimes we may feel threatened and that may be warranted or it may be not. We may not understand what's being communicated to us, or we may read someone's body language incorrectly. It's hard to have those conversations when you don't understand someone. So if you're feeling threatened, it's really good to kind of talk about that experience and find a non-biased sounding board to work through that together. Injustice, lack of validation, that's a big one. If you're feeling like your treatment is being navigated a different way, other potential causes of anger, injustice, lack of validation, you know, if you're not feeling like you're understood or heard, or your goals are not being honored, that can be really anger provoking. It's important, again, to reach out and talk through that with someone so that you do get understood and your goals are met. Trauma in childhood or adulthood. So I'm EMDR certified, which is a therapy that specifically deals with traumas. Some things in our brain are recalled with sensations, emotions. So let's say you experienced something really negative and traumatizing as a child. Our body remembers those physical sensations. So when you start feeling the same physical sensations, maybe for an upcoming appointment or a situation that you come into, our body automatically goes to, oh my gosh, I felt this before. Did I need to fight, flight, or freeze in that moment? And it kind of jumps into that automatically. So if we've got some traumas that are triggering some emotional reactions like anger now, it's good to be aware of that. And again, you can work with somebody on how to overcome through some of those moments. Substance use. Substance use is a big one. Alcohol being one of them, nicotine, tobacco. Some of these substances that we've been using have been our coping skills for a long time, and now we're faced with treatment where we're just all of a sudden supposed to stop smoking and drinking. That's a very, very important conversation to have with your physician on how to do that safely with your treatment. And as you're going through some of that tapering off, you might be experiencing some intense anger. It's really important to just get the understanding of what that looks like and the support that you need through any substance use challenges. Mental health conditions. There are a multitude of mental health conditions that may make anger a more intense emotion in certain moments. Again, there are a lot of different ways to cope through it, skills you can work on to build in yourself. Personality traits. So we've got a lot of different personality traits too that just exemplify increased anger. That could be from what you've learned, from what you've grown up with. You know, is our family highly reactive and yelling a lot, and that's just the way we communicate? That can look quite differently to somebody who is maybe your treating physician and they have a very quiet, respectful type of family upbringing. And there could be a multitude of other potential causes for anger. So if you sit back, I think it's really important to look back on instances where you felt angry and why did I feel angry? Where did that come from? I felt unheard. I felt disrespected. And then checking the facts. So was I really disrespected? Did those words from the other person mean that necessarily? Should I have a conversation and ask about it? Kind of navigating the root of where that anger came from and then exploring ways to overcome that. So I've created a list of the potential contributing factors to anger, and we can include that in a link below this video, but I'll go over some of them. I created a little grid that if you like to journal, you can create notes and explore anger on your own, or with a family member sometimes, a best friend, therapist, any of those options. So some of the potential causes that might be a contributing factor to anger would be entitlement. Just waiting for the car to go past. So entitlement is believing that one's rights and privileges are superior to those of other people. You know, I think we've really gotten used to kind of speaking up for what we need and what we want and what our thoughts are, and that can be really conflictual in conversations. So understanding where other people are coming from, trying to really understand what's being communicated to you can be challenging, especially if you believe that a certain way should be the end-all be-all. That's really hard. So consider how each of these might apply to you. Again, it might not apply to your situation at all. Another contributing factor could be focusing on things that are out of your control. This is really hard for me. I like all my ducks in a row. I'm very structured. I like routine. I find a lot of comfort in that. Well, when I was going through cancer treatment, there was so much out of my control. My days were disrupted. I never knew how I was gonna feel. One minute I'd want people to come over and visit. The next I'd be like, I don't wanna do anything. So again, consider how that might apply to you and how you can shift it. I had to ask myself during my treatment, you know, I just invited Susie over and now 2 minutes later, like, I don't wanna see anyone. Well, how do I feel after she comes and visits? And it was usually a more positive response. So I couldn't get angry for people offering help to me. They were just trying to be helpful. My anger came from I didn't know what to ask for help. So then I had to learn how to shift that. Okay, I don't know what I need or want. These people keep asking me like what they can do to support me, and I just kind of want to shut down. Like, it's kind of making me angry. I had to really evaluate that and say, well, how can I shift that to make it better? Because that's something that is in my control. I ended up telling the people around me, do what you feel appropriate. Like, do what you feel led to do, whether it was providing meals or like bringing over a cup of coffee or just watching a movie on my couch with me. Leaving it up to them gives them an opportunity to participate in your journey, and it helps you to free it up. Like, I don't really have directions for anybody on how to help me in this situation. It's all very new and foreign. That can be frustrating in itself. Another contributing factor, external regulation of emotions. So trying to regulate your emotions by controlling your environment. Things are going to happen. Like, we can't possibly control all the different stuff in our life. So that might look like avoidance sometimes. Like, you know what, I'm just going to close myself off because I can't deal with people. I'm going to get rid of the dog because he's just annoying. Like, some of those extreme behaviors can be an indicator of like, I think I need to work through my anger a little bit more with someone. External locus of control. So believing well-being is controlled by sources outside of oneself. It can be hard to rely on a physician's recommendations if you really believe that something else is contributing to your cancer. And that can make you feel really angry if you're not able to adhere to some of the external things. You know, we hear a lot about don't eat sugars because that makes your cancer grow. We need a balance. It's all about balance. So finding that is great. Heavily restricting yourself from external things can be dangerous at times. That's really a conversation you need to have with your physicians to find a good balance. Maybe refusal to see others' perspectives, so viewing different perspective as threats. I oftentimes would get angry in my journey because people would like try and give me their opinion, even not as a physician, but like, oh, my friend went through this and she did this, so you need to do that, or like people forcing certain things upon you, like, hey, there's this medicine or this supplement that like worked for her, you need to do that. Or if I was in your shoes, I would just not do anything and I would go to Mexico or something. Everybody has their own perspectives and opinions, and that's great. They're trying to share with you, but sometimes that would make me frustrated along my journey, and I had to learn to just take some deep breaths and say, that's okay that they are trying to help me, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go along with what they say. There are also really nice ways to share your own opinions, like, oh, I could see that for you. In my case, I'm not really open to doing that, but I appreciate you sharing. A low tolerance for discomfort. Maybe we've never had to face anything like this before. Maybe we've never had to face anything even close to this before. That would be quite disruptive. Low tolerance for ambiguity. So ambiguity is like, to me, fuzzy borders, like the unknown. I just am not sure of what treatment looks like because we're waiting on results, or like we're waiting to see how my body handles things. The waiting game is definitely frustrating. So maybe it's like difficulty with that ambiguity. Hyper focus on blame. My mom had a really hard time when I went through cancer, and she was like, what did I do or didn't I do to cause you to have cancer? And that blame was just misappropriated. It wasn't anything that she did or didn't do. And the same thing for myself, like, oh gosh, is it because I wore my cell phone in my pocket of this sweater for like so many times? Blame is really not helpful in this situation, and it can kind of hurt your relationships with others or yourself sometimes. Working through some of that blame with a professional will take that weight off your shoulders. And a fragile ego. So an example that I had to think of for fragile ego is I easily get angry if my decisions are questioned. And I had to think about that. So it starts by feeling defensive, even if people are just trying to get to know me, and I feel compelled to have an answer, even if I'm not sure of what the answer is. A way that I can shift that is by being more aware of when I begin to feel my fragile ego, when I start to feel defensive, and taking a deep breath before answering, like, I'm feeling something bubbling up in me. Why? They're not really attacking me. I'm not physically in danger. Even if my response is, I'm not sure why I'm doing things that way, I'll have to think about it. Or by asking a question in return. I guess I've never considered any other alternative. Like, what are some ways you decided to do it? And just having an open dialogue. It's the fun part. So, no matter where you are, if you're inside or outside, we have a ton of ways to release anger constructively. I used to work in a high school, and teenagers are dealing with a lot and have a lot of emotions. I would have one of those punching bags, like suction cupped to my desk, and I had a couple of punching gloves that they could just punch that and kind of get it out. Go to the weight room, punch one of those body bags, lift some weights. Exercise is a great way to constructively deal with anger. We can do things in really simple ways too, like, this is why we're outside. I literally just went and picked up some sticks. In the high school I taught at, I would have students break pencils, like not fresh new pencils because that would be wasteful, but any of those like old cruddy pencils you've sharpened a million times, maybe it's like, angled funny, break them. Oh, it feels so good to just break twigs and toss them and really get that out. You might want to wear some protective equipment if you're going to be breaking twigs and stuff, so make sure that you wear your protective eyewear. Also, like, have you ever just destroyed like a pine cone and looked what's inside and just kind of went at it? It's great. It feels so wonderful. Inside, like maybe it's just crushing a cup and like, as far as you can tear it. Again, we're doing things that are safe, that are appropriate. and not harmful to ourselves or others. Like styrofoam plates, maybe you just want to punch your hand through it, maybe you just want to rip it, you know, make sure you throw that away appropriately and don't leave garbage out in our beautiful nature. Another thing, chopsticks, you know, sometimes we have these in our drawers at home that it's just like, I have spare chopsticks everywhere. Cool, you can break them too. Again, the pencils are a great idea. Cardboard boxes, if you remember being a kid, cardboard boxes were so much fun. Us as adults, we have cardboard boxes that come in Amazon packages. I mean, save some of those for you, your kids, your family members. And when you're really angry, you could tear it up if you want. You could like stomp on it outside and just destroy that cardboard box. Old telephone books. We don't really use telephone books anymore anyways, so feel free to just rip a telephone book. You know, they're like this big now when you do get them. Old magazines, there are plenty of different ways that you can constructively deal with your anger. We live near Lake Michigan, and one of the best ways, you could pick up a rock off the lake, off the beach, and you could send it with like a mantra. You know what? I am so angry that I had cancer, and just pitch that rock as far as you can chuck it. If you live by a lake, that's great. You could toss pine cones like in a park. Another helpful thing, even if you just allow yourself 2 minutes to be angry, set a timer, throw a tantrum for 2 minutes, say, this is the time that I'm giving myself to just be angry. See how you feel after that 2 minutes. It's worth a try. And you can come up with a multitude of other ways to constructively deal with anger. I think this is really important to share with your families too, because as kids grow up, they're gonna feel upset sometimes. And you can be a great model for the generations to come of how to deal with those heavy, intense emotions. I thank you for spending this time with me. Your homework, of course, is always up to you, but maybe it's just constructively exploring ways to deal with anger over the next couple weeks. See what fits for you, what items you have around, see how it feels. I'd be interested to hear how your experiences go. So feel free to leave a comment on how you're constructively dealing with anger. That could really help other people too. Thanks.